We live in an age of incredible computer imagery, special effects, and virtual reality. Because of that, we've become accustomed to sometimes not believing the things we see with our own eyes. A computer can create a convincing alien landscape or an impossible building. So how are we to know what's real and what isn't from a photograph? You don't need a computer to create wonderful sights, though. Everything you're about to see in this video is an incredible and mysterious place that really exists. We're starting off in Iceland, where there's been an enormous stone creature drinking from the water off the Atlantic coast for thousands of years. As much as this might appear to be a deliberately placed statue, it's actually a natural rock formation known in the local tongue as Vetsikkur. Confusingly, the name translates as white shirt. That isn't a description of the stone creature itself. It's a description of the thick coating of guano and shag that coats it and turns much of its surface white. Measured from top to bottom, the rock formation, which is said to resemble a mighty dragon, stands 50 feet tall. The geological explanation for its existence is that this was once the plug of a volcano, but the craters that once surrounded it have been eroded by the ocean and left the plug standing alone. In truth, it too would likely have been washed away by now had it not been shored up by concrete several decades ago in order to preserve it. Local folklore says that the figure is a giant troll who came to drink from the water but forgot to flee before sunrise and was petrified into rock by the rays of the rising sun. Various living creatures, for example chickens, reproduce by laying eggs. Inanimate objects, for example cliffs and mountains, do not. That's a basic law of science, and yet it's been completely ignored by a Chinese mountain that lays on one egg-shaped rock every 30 years. The mountain, in the Guluzhai village in China's Guizhou province, has been surrounded by the Shui people for at least the last 1,000 years, and they've come to look upon the mysterious rocky egg gifts as heavenly blessings, bringing good luck. The eggs only come from one specific cliff face on the mountain, around 60 feet long and 20 feet wide. Egg-shaped spheres can clearly be seen growing on the side of the cliff all year round. But only once every 3 decades does one break away and fall to the ground. When it does, a new one will start to form in the same spot. While the phenomenon has been observed and proven, somewhat worryingly for scientists and geologists, it has yet to be officially explained. One idea is that the mudstone around the rocks weathers faster than the calcium carbonate eggs, and therefore it gives the appearance of the eggs being birthed. But it's not very convincing. Majorca is already one of the world's most popular vacation destinations, but far too few of the people who visit there each year take the time to go and visit the so-called Dragon Caves. That's a mistake because they're staggeringly beautiful. You only need to look at them once to work out how they got their name. The walls and roofs of the caves look as if they were carved by a mighty beast, and yet they were actually carved by the hands of nature. They first appeared on a map in 1338, but they weren't studied in detail until the 1880s. The caves are considered to have some of the most striking and impressive collections of stalactites and stalagmites anywhere in the world, and since the 1920s, the caves have been illuminated for the benefit of those tourists who do make an effort to come and see them. At the center of the caves is a pool of perfectly clear blue water, known as Lake Martel, where visitors on guided tours are greeted by a small band of musicians who perform a 10-minute concert, making excellent use of the incomparable acoustics of the strange venue. There's nothing natural about the creation of Omni Portal in the Argentinian desert. It was certainly created by human hands. Although if you believe the wild tales of the man who built it, it wasn't created for human purposes. According to him, it's an airstrip to be used by extraterrestrial spacecraft, made according to the instructions of an alien UFO captain who contacted him telepathically. We don't believe any UFOs ever landed here. Perhaps they've been held up by intergalactic traffic. Nevertheless, it's a beautiful piece of desert art. Although the airstrip is in Argentina, its designer and builder was Swiss. It was Werner Jaissle who created it in December 2008. following on from an alien encounter that allegedly happened 1 month earlier. Aside from the multi-pointed rocky stars he built, he also added a few more decorative items to the area, including a pile of scorched wood. We feel a little sad for Werner that his alien friends were a no-show because making something this big while working alone at the height of over 7,000 feet above sea level is no small achievement. Life in and around the Lena River in Siberia is difficult. There are very few cars here, and even fewer railroads, so the locals rely on ships and boats coming down the river to bring in essential goods deliveries. Even that's a problem for 6 months of every year though, because it gets so cold that even the river itself freezes, locking ships into position in a bed of ice that's almost 4 feet thick. That's when workers at the Region Yakutsk shipyard prepare themselves for one of the most back-breaking forms of manual labor imaginable. It's called vymorozka, and it involves literally cutting the ships free of the ice using a combination of hammers, pickaxes, and chainsaws, and then setting about vital repair work in freezing temperatures so the ships can move again when the ice eventually thaws. Nowhere else in the world does this happen. The ice has to be allowed to thaw evenly, or the hulls of the trapped ships will warp and distort, rendering them unusable. The pure white of the ice and snow might look like something from a picture book when seen from above, but there's nothing picturesque about the hard work that's being done at ground level. We're staying in Siberia for a moment, because that's also where you'll find the Kulak cave in the north of the Khakassia region. The cave has many nicknames, and none of them are promising. Variously, it's known as the Cave of the Black Devil, the Cave of the White Shaman, or simply as the most terrible cave in the world. Here, in ancient times, human sacrifices were carried out around an ancient stalagmite altar shaped like a phallus, and allegedly dedicated to the devil. The entrance to the cave is 2,000 feet high above ground level, but once inside, the tunnel of the cave descends quickly into a series of steep passages, linked by huge grottos and penetrating over 1,500 feet into the mountain. Even the name Kashkulak is mysterious. It translates from ancient Kakas language as extra ears. It's said that in the deepest parts of the cave, it's possible to hear the thoughts of every single human being on the planet, and that the noise will drive any listener insane. We very much doubt that's true, but we're still not going to go inside and find out. Very occasionally, during 2001, the rain that fell on the state of Kerala in the south of India was red. The first time it happened, it unsurprisingly caused a mass panic. The red rain looked a lot like blood, and so residents could be forgiven for thinking that the end of the world had arrived. Kerala still exists, and so it wasn't a sign of the apocalypse after all. But it did allow for some once-in-a-lifetime pictures and videos. According to the history books, this had happened before in 1896, and has been reported in small bursts in 2012, but never on the scale that it happened in 2001, either before or since. Despite extensive study of the rainwater, which was in plentiful supply once the downpour stopped, no completely satisfactory explanation for the rain has ever been found. Tretipolia spores appear to come with the rain, and so the official explanation is that the strange shade is caused by airborne algae spores. But not everyone is satisfied with that perspective. If that were true, it should happen elsewhere in the world, and yet it doesn't. Another explanation is that the red particles could be fallout from an undetected meteor burst, but that seems equally unlikely. It seems that the cause of the red rain will remain a mystery. Elsewhere in India, there's another great natural mystery, although this one is a little easier to explain. It's the Great Banyan tree, and there's a lot of it to look at. In fact, from a distance, you'd think you were looking at a whole forest. Unbelievably, despite what your eyes might be telling you, everything you see here is just one tree, with almost 3,000 aerial roots. This phenomenon can be found in Howrah, and is thought to be the only tree formation of its kind and size in the world. The tree is almost 3 centuries old and is still growing, despite the fact that it's already spread itself across 47,000 square feet. Unsurprisingly, it's the widest tree on the planet. Several years ago, local authorities created a road that ran around the circumference of the tree, so visitors could drive around it at their leisure. But the tree has comfortably outgrown the road, and so the drive now takes you deep within the forest, which, of course, isn't actually a forest. Most of the time, there isn't much to look at when you show up in the town of Marfa, Texas, in the United States of America. It's a remote location, with very little to offer to visitors other than a bookstore and a collection of modern art. If you're very lucky, though, you might catch a glimpse of the enigmatic Marfa Lights. They've been caught on photographs and videos by enough tourists, locals, journalists, and scientists to confirm that they really exist. But nobody can explain what causes them or what they are. The lights take the form of several dancing orbs that appear to float above the highway and then disappear. They're about the size of a basketball and last only moments before they vanish. Most nights they never appear at all. Various hypotheses have been proposed, including bursts of static electricity caused by rapid temperature fluctuations, the piezoelectric effect of quartz rocks in the area expanding and contracting, and the inevitable claims of alien or supernatural activity. Some of the explanations are more plausible than others, but none have yet been proven. Perhaps you have a theory of your own. Let us know in the comments if so. Theories about who the first human occupants to what's now the Goron Open Air Museum in Cappadocia, Turkey, have varied dramatically over the years. At first, it was thought to be a monastic settlement for Byzantine monks. A change of archaeological opinion then suggested that it was actually more likely to be a 17th century pilgrimage site. Whatever its true beginning, from a human occupation point of view, was, it's a truly incredible natural wonder. The churches and homes that make up the living museum are only part of the story. It's the meringue-like soft limestone rock whipped into shape by centuries of wind and weather. That's the real star of the show. Of all the centuries-old churches in the museum, the fabled Dark Church, with its famous frescoes, is the most stunning. Named because it has so few windows, the church has benefited from a lack of natural lights over the years. It's meant that the frescoes have retained their original vivid colors. Appreciation has to be done with your eyes only. Photography inside any of the churches and buildings is forbidden as part of a concentrated preservation effort. There's more than a passing similarity between Goreme and Uplishtiske cave town in Georgia, although the harsher rocks of Uplishtiske took more effort to shape and craft. This rock-hewn town is abandoned now, but it played a pivotal role in the area's ancient history. Human habitation of the town began around 3,000 years ago during the Bronze Age and ended a little over 700 years ago. For at least 500 of those years, it was the capital city of Kartli, the state that existed on the land before Georgia. Based on discoveries inside the ancient town's temples, it appears that the 20,000 or so inhabitants worshipped a sun god until Christianity arrived in the area, but that Christians and these sun god worshippers existed side by side until Mongol hordes arrived and massacred the inhabitants in the 13th century. It's been abandoned ever since. What's especially remarkable about the ruins of the old homes and temples is their plain, simple nature. There's almost a total lack of any decorative items, save for a Christian stone basilica right at the top of the 3-story complex. For many years, experts, archaeologists, and historians didn't think that the site of Moray in Urubamba, Peru, was anything more than a strange work of agricultural art, one that may perhaps have had religious or spiritual significance. That's because they'd vastly underestimated the abilities and knowledge of ancient Inca farmers. The nested stone rings are delicately carved to descend in a series of steps, with a difference of 90 feet between the inner ring and the outer ring. On each of these steps is grass grown from soil that could only have been imported into the area from elsewhere. Add to that the fact that there's a temperature differential of 15 degrees Celsius from the top level to the bottom level, and what you're actually looking at is an incredibly well-designed series of microclimates that would have allowed different crops to be grown on different levels at different times of the year, thus ensuring that the Inca would never starve. It's an idea so mind-blowingly clever that experts are now wondering if it can be the difference between feasting and starvation.
Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, and you will be the first to know when a new video comes out. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.